the intensity of emotion that I experienced during this period of time was far beyond anything that I could have considered possible. But it was this each feeling that I had, each wave of love or sadness, of both that passed through me, my heart opened and opened and opened. And soon I couldn't tell the difference in my felt sense between my heart and my experience. Hi, my name is Blaise Kennedy. I'm a spiritual teacher, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my awakening journey, which is the confluence, the integration of three processes which occur in within consciousness, within creation, within life. And the first is embodiment, or you could say in psychology, the integration of the nervous system. In spirituality, you might say the opening of the chakra system. The second process is incarnation, which is the arrival of light into the world. This is your birth and your life and the process of moving through life as light. And the third process is retracting our focus through all of the dimensions, following the path of light back to the source of consciousness, and experiencing transcendence, liberation, realizing the true nature of reality, the source of all experience, the one truth that pervades, that out of all creation comes. But my story starts perhaps as a child or a young person who knew nothing, or you could say remembered none of this. I saw what was directly in front of me. I like to play with my friends. I like music. I live in Canada. I played hockey a lot. I loved sports. And I never thought very deeply about life or consciousness, the nature of reality at all. And while I would describe myself as a very normal, mainstream child, I also had a lot of challenges in life. I had trouble with motivation and discipline. I had trouble being honest. I had trouble doing the right thing pretty consistently through my young years. I was a good boy, a nice boy, but I had inner struggles with relating to the world in a healthy way. And when I was 12 years old, my father died. My father was the maybe my best friend at the time, the person that I was closest with. He died quite suddenly, and I had an argument with him the night before he died. And this radically changed my life. I I could not handle. I actually feel myself tightening up as I go to speak about this. I could not process what had happened. I could not really deal or face what had occurred. And I showed up as little as I had to for this experience, which means I I really tried to minimize how exposed and vulnerable I was as a human being at this age. I really did not want to go through this experience. But I had to. So I did sort of as little or the best that I could and minimized how exposed I was. And if you'd asked me in the years after that, sort of what impact did your father's death have on you, I would have said, oh, it happened, but I'm in the future now. I've gotten over this. I've moved on. Um, that was in the past, and I'm here now. And this would not be true at all. What I realized looking back is that it froze my development. As a 12-year-old, I was moving into becoming a teenager, which is a huge transition. And if I was in the Jewish tradition, I'd have my bar mitzvah. It would be a celebrated transition. But for me, at this time, my father had died, and it froze my development. So I did not really grow up. I did not engage in a healthy way in all of the opportunities that come to teenagers and young adults. I was avoiding participation in life, which means I I I lied a lot. I was dishonest. I had trouble being close to people. I started to use drugs and really would take the easy way out and continually the question just surrounding me in my life was what is wrong with Blaise? Why can't Blaise, manifest his potential? He's clearly very bright. He's a capable young man, but what is the matter with him? Never was the word trauma used. I don't think it really existed in my culture at that time. Um, I certainly never considered this. It was just a mystery. I didn't really know what had happened to me. And my life kind of just got worse from there. I was very stagnant. I graduated high school. I had some jobs, eventually got more involved with drugs and addiction. And when I was in my early 20s, I got really stuck. I got in trouble. Not quite legal trouble, but close. And at this time, my mother offered me a deal. She said, I will help you out of this trouble. You have to go to a treatment center. And, by this time, I was kind of tired of being a loser. I was tired of screwing up my life, and I felt ready for a change. I remember thinking, I think I'm going to get into spirituality. That's what I'm going to do. That's the thing that I haven't tried yet. I've tried uh, drugs, obviously, but they are a dead end. I'm going to get into spirituality. Of course, I didn't know anything about this or what this meant, but I saw going to treatment as a path for that. So I accepted. And I remember I went to the treatment center and thinking that I'd wasted my whole life. As soon as I got there, I realized that this was the beginning of my life, that I was way ahead as a young man, considering the population of other addicts that I was around and how much they had suffered in addiction and how much longer they'd been in addiction. I was one of the youngest people there. And suddenly I felt like I had a jump start on life. And secondly, I just recognized that I loved treatment. I loved the process. I tried to take psychology even in schools in college years ago. Treatment is applied psychology. You get right in there and it's fascinating. I loved it. And I realized that going to treatment again was not the end of my life, it was the beginning of my life. And I really embraced the opportunity. And for the first couple of years, this was my spiritual journey, was participating in um, recovery-based events and considering myself as an addict and doing the 12 steps and being in group therapy with other addicts. I really committed to this process. This was my base. And as I got better and healthier and grew up, I eventually went on beyond that. But there were some really fundamental skills that I learned in the treatment center that sort of formed the base of my spiritual practice and process. And the most important is honesty and transparency. If you are an addict, the basic premise of how you don't relapse or how you stay sober is you are honest. That's the hard part for addicts. It was the hard part for me in my entire life. And this radical opportunity was presented to me in treatment. Instead of lying and manipulating and avoiding and hiding things, let's try. Blaise, you are invited. This is your opportunity to try radical honesty, which really includes the emphasis of this is you have to know what's true for you to be honest, which means you have to give your attention to yourself. You have to pay attention to yourself. So this is what I practiced in treatment. And again, it worked. It worked fabulously. I was shocked. Wow, it's so easy. If you just tell people what's actually happening for you, then there's not this like buildup and residue and barrier between you and the world. And actually, things just work out much better. So I was very, very committed to this. And I started to wonder, like, how far does this go? Like, how far can you take this? This is working. I feel good at it. I feel competent. I feel very confident and excited. How how far can this go? And it was also at this time that I recognized that I had not, just as I thought, gotten over the death of my father. I actually had experienced a tremendous trauma, which had not been processed at all. And I discovered this not just by talking about my father's death, but actually feeling my body. And I had this really amazing experience at the beginning of my journey where when I let myself feel, I felt like I was 12 years old. What I realized is the feelings that I was having in that moment in a group therapy session, they were, they had been frozen in my body since I was 12 years old. And again, this is a profound healing effect on me, but radically changed my perception of reality. How is it possible that I can live for 12 years, really, without knowing how I feel? How is it possible that my body can be storing so much emotion, so much intensity without me knowing? And this began my fascination with the experience of trauma. Trauma is very painful, difficult, obviously. It's very painful. But for me, it's a subject of study, of fascination, of a great love of how does this body, how does this consciousness actually function? So when I left treatment, I left really with two sort of primary orientations. There's one, I was going to learn to meditate. I started meditating really intensively without much direction or guidance at all, just really happy to be sitting. And the second was I was really going to learn about trauma. So I sat around a lot for the first little while. I didn't really know how to actualize these, that they weren't really part of the treatment protocols or program. Uh, but through a stroke of divine intervention, I met the woman who is my wife today, and it was like a full package from life. My entire future process just landed in my lap when I met her. And as soon as I saw her, I knew that this had happened. I've never had this experience before. I saw my wife and I knew that I had found my path. Okay, and it took me a long time to figure out what that actually meant, but it was a profound moment of clarity. And I was so grateful for the simple or the clear guidance. So my wife introduced me to two spiritual teachers who really formed the foundation of my spiritual practice for the next decade. And one was Adyashanti, who was a Zen or former Zen meditation teacher, awakening teacher, who really helped me focus and pay attention in meditation and helped me to look at consciousness. Again, I'd been meditating for some period of time, but Adyashanti introduced me to self-inquiry, and he introduced me to the concept that not only can you just sort of sit there, but actually you can look directly at the experience of the consciousness and you can inquire into it. I read a book that he had written on this. I listened to talks, and one day I was walking. I lived in Vancouver at the time. I was walking under the Broad Street Bridge, and I was contemplating some of the things that he had taught and that he was suggesting. And without much effort or without really trying to, suddenly everything just made sense. I had a moment or a process of extreme clarity. And in my body, it felt like I got struck from above by lightning. I just had this strong sense of charge, like landing in my head. And in the moments that followed that, everything in life became extraordinarily clear. It was so clear, I just started running. I didn't know it. I just felt pure joy. Something is happening to me, and it's extraordinary. This is it. Couldn't tell you what it was, but I just started running. And I ran for a bit, and I sat down on some rocks. And when I looked around me, what I noticed was everything is here. The entire world, the city of Vancouver that was all around me was here. It was not separate from me. Everything was immediately present and close. And I could focus on, or I could hold the whole of my consciousness in focus. And this lasted for, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes with this intense level of clarity. And I remember right before it ended, I had the thought, wow, I don't want this to ever end. And as soon as I had that thought, it was gone. But it didn't matter. Yeah, it was probably sad at the time that it went away, but it didn't matter. What it started, it catalyzed these three processes that I had spoken about. It was really the beginning of my conscious life. Everything that I'd been doing in treatment really led up to this moment. It was the beginning of primarily what I noticed to begin with. It was the process of coming down into my body. So I am what you would call in spirituality a top downer, which means that my awakening started sort of in my head and over the next maybe 8 years really forced its way through my body. So again, the experience went away, but a process had begun that was moving on its own. And I still spent a lot of time meditating, but what I noticed was the intensity of experiences that I was having were extraordinary. Like I'm not comparable to anything that I'd ever experienced before. It was like my entire head, and then progressively my chest and my heart, and then progressively my belly. Everything was being liquefied, or uh, you could say like set on fire. Physiologically, it feels like the solid form of your body turns to energy progressively. So again, I started to have headaches. I had all kinds of pain in my head and experiences of energy, strange sensations, which didn't really alarm me, but I had no frame of reference for them. And again, it moved progressively through my body. But I'll pause this to name that I also, at the same time, my wife bought me a ticket to see Thomas Hübl, the other spiritual teacher who has really defined the direction of my life, my primary inspiration as a teacher now. Thomas Hübl didn't focus on consciousness as a singular phenomenon so much. He wasn't so traditional in that sense. He focused on relationship. He focused on trauma. He focused on the nervous system and the developmental process that occurs through childhood and up into adulthood. The process of becoming and the fulfillment of that process. And he had this radical capacity. My wife bought me, so just after we met, she bought me tickets to see him live in Vancouver. He just happened to be there. And I remember the things he was saying in the workshop were so radical to me about what is possible for human beings in terms of how they relate, how they see each other, how they feel themselves. And this is really defined, or the biggest example of this is I put up my hand to ask him a question, and he turned his attention and looked at me. And in that moment, my body felt transparent. Like his gaze, he looked right through me. And I didn't know this was possible. People didn't look at me my whole life. And nobody ever looked at me like this. And my body started shaking. I felt really uncomfortable to be seen that deeply. And his feedback to me was very challenging. It was very challenging feedback, but it's like he knew me more than I knew myself. He could see deeper into me than I could see. And I left this weekend workshop like I have to be able to do that. Like whatever whatever he is doing, that's what I want to do. And so I said, "How do you do this? Like what's the way to go forward?" And he said, "Well, you just follow everything into your body." And this made sense to me because I was already starting to experience this aligned perfectly with this sort of vertical top-down process that was happening for me. So this is how I spent my time. I meditated a lot, but even moreover, having a spiritual practice, I had a direction in my life now. I'm just gonna go deeper and deeper, deeper into my body. Something good happens, great. You feel it and you practice sinking down into your body. Something bad happens, you get triggered, which again was starting to happen to me a lot. I'll speak about that. Follow it into your body. It's just this endless fascination, this endless potential to have experience, to discover, to work through things was every day from the moment woke up to the moment I went to bed. I felt extremely fulfilled and challenged. But this is really my spiritual direction was I was just going to sink down in my body. That's what I was going to do. And everything that I did in my life was just a means to accomplishing that. My relationship was with my wife was growing and building and challenging in many ways. And for me, in so many ways, it was kind of like a means to get deeper into my body. I didn't really care so much about what happened in my life. I was, my primary focus was following this direction that I've been given. And it led me to many very sort of interesting places. It led me to become a foster parent. I worked with children with extreme backgrounds. I first in a care home, and then I eventually ended up taking one of them into my own home. And this perfectly coincided with the opening of my heart. And it was through having to care for these children at, at that time was just when my heart was ready to break open. And I, the intensity of emotion that I experienced during this period of time was far beyond anything that I could have considered possible. But it was this each feeling that I had, each wave of love or sadness of both that passed through me, my heart opened and opened and opened. And soon I couldn't tell the difference in my felt sense between my heart and my experience. This is how I would describe a heart opening is, or the heart chakra, or the dimension of consciousness that is associated with it, is it creates a field. Your whole life exists within a field that feels like love. Everything is here, and it feels like love. And this was really when the first awakening experience that I'd had kind of came back in its substantialness, in that fullness, in the sense of love. I'd had a pretty steady experience of spacious awareness, but this for me was a huge relief to get back to this place where there's this one field of love, this unified field, that my heart and my life are not separate. And then you have to learn to live from that place. How do you live now that this is true for you? How do you live? What do you do with your life? How do you relate to people if this is true? And this is a huge focus of my time. And again, this process moved on deeper and deeper and deeper into my body. I spent a lot less time meditating and a lot more time participating in life after my experiences stabilized. At the same time, this other process, the process of incarnating, started to become relevant or perceptible to me because I was starting to feel deeper and deeper into the consciousness. I could start to contact fields, this field of energy that I described. I could start to relax, and I would have experiences beyond that of the structures of the higher dimensions of consciousness, which are made out of light. And at this time, I didn't really know what to do with that. Adyashanti said, just keep going, just keep going. Again, you want to get to the source. That's where we're going. We're going to the source of consciousness. So I would have these higher dimensional experiences. I didn't really know how to talk about them or what influence they had on my worldly life. It was just the breakdown of the linear flow of time and life. I'll speak more about this, but these dimensions, I'll speak more about this later. These dimensions go from life being a field of energy, or as we experience now, life being um, a physical object. Life begins to be experienced simultaneously. Like in the higher dimensions, all life moments already exist, and it's that they exist as structures of light. And this is again, what do I what do I do with this other than enjoy the beauty of it at the time? I didn't know. I was still really focused on my body and continuing to learn to take care of my life, which I'd taken on foster children, and I was married. I was getting married and being married at this time as well. Um, But no matter how big and fancy or transformative the experience, no matter how difficult the thing that I went through, I just I showed up for it. I was so happy to be devoted and dedicated and have a direction. I mean, you can hear it in my voice. I'm very excited to tell this story. I was very excited and motivated at this time in my life. But as you go on and on and on doing this, it started to kind of take its toll on me. Like, not like I was getting tired, but just like the question is like, does this ever end? Like, is there an end? Is it just going to be this volatile forever? Like, where's the stability? Where's the point at which I don't know, reach the end or become enlightened or have the experience that puts me uh, puts this insecurity or this doubt or this not knowing to rest. Before I put that doubt or insecurity to rest, I started to know that it was present. Like as much as I know, as much as I can feel, as embodied as I am, as I can feel love, I can feel light, I can feel space. Like there's still some uncertainty. There's still some primary uncertainty about what am I or what is true or what is the nature of reality. I couldn't have verbalized it, but it felt to me like an insecurity. Often like I have to get somewhere and this is going to solve the problem, but I don't know where that is. And it's about this time I actually read some teachings on absolute reality, and I started to really be able to focus on the concept of transcendence. I started to really be able to see, oh, okay, all of the things that I'm describing, all of the beautiful facets of consciousness, these are an experience, and I can transcend that experience. And the way this is often phrased is that there is something beyond the experience of awareness, beyond consciousness, beyond the experience you're having, beyond the experience of being, and all of the qualities of consciousness that is the true self. And I remember being one night, I remember being frustrated and thinking like that, how do I get outside of consciousness? And if I try, the effort that I use just has me focus more and more on consciousness. And so I thought, I can feel that I'm at this end point. I'm right here, and I don't know how to cross. I don't know how to cross that barrier. And one day, shortly after, I was in my living room, and like that, I got it. I just got it. It was not a fancy experience. It was a very kind of ordinary shift in perception. And what I saw clearly, what I see now clearly, is that consciousness is an experience. Yes, it feels like I am, and it feels like my soul, and it feels like love, and it feels like me. It's designed to feel like that. But fundamentally, all of this is something that I'm witnessing. I got it. The self, the ultimate truth of life, is beyond all of those experiences and fundamentally does not exist. It is not created. It has no quality. It has no form. You couldn't give it a name because it has not been birthed. It is out of which everything is birthed. It's the absence out of which the fullness of life, all qualities of consciousness, all creation arises. And this is me. I am that unspeakable experience. And the outcome of this is relief, the end of that, the end of the insecurity, the end of the looking for what experience, where do I get to? What do I have to accomplish to know the truth or to be enlightened or to get to the end? All of that went away in this really ordinary moment. Everything became clear. Everything is fine. I transcended the process of consciousness. And at this time, it was the beginning of my time as a teacher. I haven't spoken much about this, but I knew from the very beginning of this journey when I was in treatment that I was going to be a spiritual teacher. In about 9 years or 8 years, something like that, I can't remember exactly, I started to teach. And um, I felt nervous about it. I had really strong feelings about it. It really mattered to me that I did it well. And of course, when you start anything, you're not very good at it. But I had started to teach. And when this sort of relief came into my life, when this realization of the truth came into my life, everything kind of just settled for me. And I could really focus on the process of living and becoming. See, when you're not trying to find the answer to life anymore, uh, when you when you when the search for the truth is complete, then what's left is to participate and enjoy creation. The reason that life is created is actually not to get out of it. It's created for you to get into. And this is what the perspective that liberation affords us. And so I really started to focus on my work. I loved working with people, and I was learning so rapidly. And this process, again, that I've described is retracing the light back to the source. And if consciousness is a city, this process is kind of like driving to the airport to get on a flight. You don't stop along the way to enjoy all the sights. You just get to the airport to catch your flight. So for me, this process, again, I wasn't really exploring any of the dimensions of consciousness. I was just trying to get to the beginning. I was just trying to get to the place where I would experience this relief, even if I didn't know that it was where it's going. That process had its own sort of natural way. But now I didn't have anywhere to go. And what I found was that through working with people, this has been the last 4 years of my life, 5 years of my life, through working with people, I got to explore consciousness. So there are many approaches to being a spiritual teacher. Thomas Hübl's approach really affected me the most. And it's something that I really champion and love for myself, which is I don't just tell you about my experience like I've done for the last half hour. My job is to meet you in your experience. So my job, my day-to-day job is I have an office that I'm sitting in, and I have a computer, and people show up in groups and in person, and I frame what we're doing, and I describe and I teach a little bit. But most of the time, I look at the person that I'm relating to or the group of people that I'm relating to, and I meet them where they are. I explore my consciousness. I explore creation by working with people. So the more, this is now my practice. This is my meditation. This is my great love affair. And so first, I really wanted to be able to do what Thomas Hübl could do, which is to look through this vertical nervous system process to recognize trauma, to recognize the past, to feel people through their whole lives. Again, Thomas would say, everything that's ever happened to you is here. And he meets you in it. And I thought, I'm going to learn how to do this. So I worked with people, and over time I got better and better at seeing and feeling people, learning to feel through the dimensions of consciousness and find the things that really needed to be seen and felt sort of vertically in the body. The more I did this, uh, increasingly my perspective, my view on life, I could see and feel deeper and deeper into consciousness. I began to hold fields or groups of consciousness and really be able to recognize dynamics that are occurring or present. I started to recognize that as much as personal development is important, there are collective fields, that this nervous system that I describe, or the chakra system, is part of one interconnected field, which I call the global body. And I started to teach into the principles of this and explore it through my work and explore it through my life. Again, it's my great joy and fascination, whether I'm working or whether I'm with my children or by myself. And the further I uh, gave my attention to this field, I started to recognize, I could see the structures of light that precede this field, the more subtle structures of life and the process of incarnation. And this is sort of my cutting edge. I feel very fluent in what you could call the fifth dimension, or the what I described as the unified field, or the global body. I feel very fluent here. But recently, my cutting edge is to meet people deeper and deeper and deeper in consciousness, meet people in their soul. And that may mean experiences that they have had on earth, but often, to my great joy, many souls, much of the light that is here now is new to the earth, which means that if I meet you there, we get to go together to where you are from and what you are bringing into this world. So not only, I used to say, I use this computer screen in my work. It's my way to explore the world. I learn about my world. I learn about the humans in this world. I learn about the history of the earth by working with people, whether that's the trauma or lives people have experienced personally or in their family or collectively. All of this is perceptible and visible. We can learn how to relate to all of this together, and it's extraordinarily transformative. And now, I would say this computer and my work is the way that I learn about my universe. My process and the work that I'm doing extends well beyond the earth, and is getting larger and larger every day, especially as I'm meeting people. People are coming to me who are conscious of this, who like exploring their soul or feeling themselves as light is they're not seeking an adventure. Like, it's fundamental to their well-being. They need it. And it's been my great joy to help them feel sort of the source of their life and their process of incarnating. So as a teacher, uh, again, what I would emphasize, again, what I teach, I do teach this path back to the source of consciousness, the traditional path towards liberation, the truth that brings relief, that has the Buddha smile. I do teach that, but where I spend most of my time are on the dimensions and processes that lie in the middle. So this means the chakra system, the process of development of a human being, and learning to embody and integrate all of the energy in this dimension of consciousness. And the second process that I support is incarnation, which means the amount of light. How do we get as much of your light to be seen and arrive and land in the structure of your body? Now, to do this, to have light land in the structure of body, you need a really integrated field of energy, really integrated nervous system. Light lands in love, or light lands in integrated fields of energy. And so these two things go together. Our ability to integrate, heal our trauma, feel our body as a single flow, as a single field, as a unified body of energy, facilitates the holding of light. It also allows us to see through the structure of our body and see into higher consciousness, which means we can see our light because we do this trauma or healing work. And the more that we can recognize the light, the more that we can invite it into our body. So whereas traditional liberation, the focus tends to be, or non-dual teachings tends to be on getting to the highest truth, which is really important, or a primary part of awakening. My focus is on how do we do that? Well, we learn to be in our bodies, and we complete the process of development, and we complete the process of incarnating. Just because you are here doesn't mean you've completed these processes. The nature of the world is that the field of energy, the life that we have, the world that we have is too dense, too fragmented to just allow these processes to be completed naturally. Later in life, we have to go back and complete them. And that's what I help people do. And again, if liberation is your goal, all of this completion of these processes allows for this relaxation, allows for you to sink deeper and deeper into consciousness, and will take you there anyways. It's just that our focus is on these two processes. Okay, I'm looking at the time. That's a lot. The last thing I want to say is As my process has matured through all the things that I've said, I increasingly my well-being is the Earth's well-being. And again, as it grows even more, my well-being is interrelated to the well-being of the universe, of consciousness itself. And so it's my great joy, it's to my benefit and yours that we work together to fulfill the processes that are occurring in consciousness. And there's so many things I could talk about, but the most sort of exciting and a radical thing that I see happening is that through the process of incarnating, the earth is being bombarded with light. It's your life, it's your birth and life. It's every single human being is born is the arrival of light into this world. And again, this process is not contained to the earth. Light is coming from all over the universe, from diverse fields of consciousness. You could call it cultures or civilizations if you want to get really specific about it, with different properties, different ways of being. This is a tremendously exciting time to be alive. And my job is as much to relate to the individual, yes, and support your awakening. My job is to support as much light to arrive into this planet as I possibly can. That's how I will spend the rest of my life. And again, I do this by helping our bodies become vehicles for the light and by helping us recognize the incarnational process and actively welcome, bring, feel, invite, support this light to land in our bodies. So that's a lot. I packed the last 14, 10, 12 something years of my life into 45 minutes. I shared with great energy and enthusiasm. I love what I do. I'm so grateful that I get to share this with you, and I hope it helps. I'll just share a couple links with you. If you're interested in the work that I do, you can go to my website. I teach groups. I do all kinds of events that are free, but I also teach. I run a community online of practitioners. Again, I didn't mention this, but again, inspired very much by Thomas Hübl. I don't just teach to people or work with people. I have a community of people that actually develop the capacities that I'm talking about, the seeing through the transparency of consciousness. I'm developing a community of practitioners who do this all together. We are doing this together, leaning into the interrelatedness of consciousness, working together, using the natural properties of higher consciousness. It's a beautiful thing, and I welcome you to be a part of it. So I teach programs that introduce how you would do that and the practices and orientations that support that. And then I bring people into the community. I run in-person retreats and online retreats as well. And I offer free events as well, meditations and other events to help you get a sense of what I do and try for yourself. And the second link I would give you is I like to make YouTube videos. I like to talk about a diversity of subjects from the traditional path towards liberation, healing, trauma, relationships, manifestation, the state of the world, and increasingly, I'm going to make content about the state of the universe. Okay. I feel complete. If you made it this far and you're hearing me say goodbye, well, thank you for watching. I hope this helps, and blessings in your journey.